Good evening. Today, I thought I'd take a little bit of a break from historicals and show you how I've painted this Mordor Troll from the Middle-earth strategy battle game by Games Workshop, and I'll just take you through the steps I did to take this from sprue to the paint job that you see here pretty quickly, to a decent tabletop standard and with a nice base as well, and we'll just get started.
Right, so after assembly I've cleaned up as many of the mould lines as I can, and I've also used plastic putty to fill in some of the gaps. Following this, I've then given the entire model undercoat with the grey Seer Games Workshop spray paint, and we're ready to start working on all of that lovely flesh. So for the flesh, I'm going to be using 3 of the contrast paints, and I'm starting with the technical contrast medium, and you want 3 parts of this, and I'm going to be mixing it with 2 parts of Guilliman Flesh and half a part of Basilicanium Grey, and this is going to give a fairly muted skin colour that we can paint all over the flesh areas, making sure to get it in all the recesses and getting good coverage. For the next step, you're going to want to make a small mix of 2 parts of technical contrast medium to 1 part of blood angels red. Mixture, you want to now aim to put that in the recesses, so in the bags under his eyes, the creases around the nose and around the mouth, also putting it into any recesses where the skin may be rubbing against the armour or against other folds, and it just looks like a little bit of soreness. Once that layer is dry, I'm going to be using contrast colour Wyldwood, and I'm going to be using that straight out of the pot to paint all of the scales that are all over the skin on the fronts of the legs and on his back. Once all the scales are dry, we're going to finish the flesh off by doing an incredibly light dry brush with 2 parts of Rakarth Flesh to 1 part of Palid Wych Flesh. Mix that together, and as I say, it's going to be a very, very light dry brush across all of the flesh areas. Now that the dry brushing is complete, we have a nice set of highlights on the flesh, as you can see on the knee and on the sort of upper chest, and also on the lips. While I was painting this, I suddenly remembered I had a spare arrow from another set of models that I've been building, so I've taken that and I've added that to his chest just to represent where he's just taken a bit of damage, so I'm going to be adding some blood to that later. The red is showing up quite nicely where all those folds of skin are rubbing against each other as he's marching along. So to finish this off, I'm now just going to do the toenails and the fingernails, and to do that I'm just going to be using Ushabti Bone and then giving it a once over wash with the contrast paint Skeleton Horde. Now that that's dry, I'm going to focus on painting the cloth areas, and to do that I'm going to use 2 parts of the contrast medium to 1 part of the contrast paint Militarum Green, and this is going to go on to all the areas of cloth, so the loincloth, the back of the loincloth and the wraps on the arms. Now that that's all dry, I'm going to dirty it up in certain areas, and to do that I'm going to use 3 parts of the technical contrast medium to 1 part of the Basilicanium Grey, and I'm just going to slap this on little patches and just give it a bit of a push around with the brush just to show a bit of wear and tear. Now that's been painted, we're going to now move on to using pure Gore Grunts Fur straight out of the pot. I'm going to use that on all of the leather straps and the harness connecting his armour and all the other parts of his kit. This is one of my favourite contrast paints. Now that I've finished that, I'm going to move on to painting the armour. And for that, I'm just using one of the dark silver colours I have, in this case Vallejo game colour Gunmetal, and I'm going to paint that all over the arms, the weapon, the helmet and the breastplate. Now that's dry, I'm just going to use Basilicanium Grey to wash all of the armour, and I'm going to use Black Templar over the hammer, just so there's a little bit of tonal variation between the metal elements. Now I'm going to add some rust effects, and I got this from Zach Castagoon painting on one of his videos. So to start with, I'm going to use Ryza Rust to make some lumps. Then I'm going to wash that with AK Interactive Paint Rust Streaks, and then I'm going to use Games Workshop's Fire Dragon Bright just to add a few highlights to that. And then I'm going to use Model Air Color Chrome to add a few scratches and head edge highlights to all of the armor. Right, we're getting towards the end, so now I'm just going to use Palid Wych Flesh to put a base coat over all of the heads that he's carrying around on his belt. Now I'm just going to use Sand Yellow from Model Colour Vallejo and Ulthuan Grey to paint the hair on the belts. Now, to get that pale flesh look, I'm going to use one part of Guilliman Flesh with 2 parts of the contrast medium, and I'm just going to paint that all over the skin on the trophy heads. Now, just going to add some colour to the hair, so we're going to use Gore Grunts Fur, Skeleton Horde, and Apothecary White for some brown, blonde, and white hair, respectively, on those trophy heads. For the arrow in his chest, I'm going to use Ushabti Bone for the shaft and Apothecary White for the fletching. Now I'm going to deal with the small amount of hair that he's got, and for that we're just going to use Basilicanium Grey straight out of the pot and put it on his top knot and mutton chops. Just a couple of small details now. I'm going to use Ushabti Bone to paint his teeth, and I'm going to use Palid Wych Flesh to do the eyes, because I want him to look a little bit like he's got cataracts as sun affects the trolls. Now I'm just going to create some troll blood using Vallejo model colour Glossy Black, Basilicanium Grey and Ulthuan Grey. The final effect to add now is just some blood splatter, which we're going to add to the trophy heads on his belt, and we're also going to add to the corner of the hammer just to show some dry blood from the heat of battle. I have my own recipe for doing this, and it involves using Tamiya Clear Red and some Agrax Earthshade that gives a nice sticky blood effect. Okay, so to start with, you just want to add a couple of drops of the Tamiya Clear Red to your palette, and then using the Games Workshop paint Agrax Earthshade, just add a couple of drops to this and mix it all together so you get a bit of a deeper red colour. Once this is done, you're going to want to leave this to start to dry. After a couple of minutes, it will be ready. When it starts forming a bit of a sticky skin, it's ready to be applied to the model. Just want to use an old brush to apply that to the model. If you can, pick up some of those sticky skin pieces because they look like where the blood has started to clot or there's a little bit more meat behind it, and just use that and slap it onto the areas that you want the effect to be.
And the troll is now finished, and I've given him a varnish of Militarum varnish, and he's now ready for basing. The troll is now ready to be mounted onto a base. So here I have a base that I've already put together and completed. I've just got some ruins, and I've tried to give it that Gondor stone effect that we've seen from the films by giving it sort of a whitish effect, and then I've used pigments and other basing effects to bring that down. The base is fairly simple to put together. Of course, I did a bit of gore on the side just so the victim of that hammer could have died there. If anyone's interested in how I've done the base, let me know. I could always put together a short video on that. So I'm just going to drill a hole, mount the troll on the base, and then we'll see the final thing. And here he is. The troll has been completed. It's a fairly straightforward paint job. If there is just one or two parts that require a little bit more care and attention, and I'm really pleased with how he has come out. So here he is. A troll worthy of Mordor, in my opinion, anyway. He's come together well. I will leave some photos, stills at the end. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it helps. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.